What's up guys, it's Regent, and today we're going to be looking at the 5 best Kilo setups for Warzone Season 5. To start things off, we're going to be looking at this particular setup that we have right here, that I like to think of as the best Kilo setup for Warzone. So we use Monolithic Suppressor for sound suppression, damage range, and also a hidden stat which actually increases bullet velocity, which is super important in Warzone because you are going to be using this Kilo at medium to long range. The Singard Arms 19.8-inch Prowler barrel, just because this is probably the best barrel for a ranged build for the Kilo, because it gives you better damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. And we use the Commando foregrip because it gives you recoil stabilization and aiming stability. The important part of this is that recoil stabilization, because the Kilo has a left-leaning recoil pattern, and most weapons in the game will lean towards the right. What this means is that even though the Kilo's recoil, especially its vertical recoil, is almost non-existent, it can still be hard to get used to at first. This recoil stabilization really gets rid of a lot of that leftwards recoil, which I feel is kind of horizontal, which is what recoil stabilization helps with. The Commando foregrip also has no negative effects on ADS speed, and since the Kilo isn't exactly the most speedy assault rifle, this can really help you out. This finally then brings us to 60-round mags, which are kind of self-explanatory. I feel like 60-round mags are pretty much what you want to be running on every AR that has them. And then we get the VLK 3.0 optic, just because, in my opinion, this is the cleanest sight. You could switch it out for other sights, which I will get to later on. But honestly, the VLK, in my opinion, is just the best for really improving the Kilo's range. I believe it even has hidden recoil control stats. So it's just a really nice and clean sight. Now let's look at some of the other Kilo setups which I have made. So we can look at the classic Kilo. The classic Kilo is basically your classic AR build in Warzone. This thing can be paired up with an SMG or sniper. Basically whatever you want to pair it up with. You have the Monolithic Suppressor, Singard Arms 19.8 Prowler barrel, Commando foregrip, and 60-round mags, just like I had with the previous setup. The only difference is that in this setup, you're going to be using Tac Laser, because Tac Laser is one of the best setups to have, or best attachments to have in Warzone. It gives you better ADS speed, aiming stability, and aim walking steadiness, all really important stats to have in Warzone. And its only con is that laser is visible to enemies, and considering all of its benefits, the Tac Laser really can be worth it. Of course, the drawback is that you'd have to get rid of a sight on the Kilo, which can suck if you don't like its iron sights. Of course, the setup could be changed though if you get rid of Commando foregrip, just because the Kilo's recoil, once you get used to it, it's really easy to control, even though it does have a little bit of leftwards leaning recoil. And you could put on whatever sight you want, like the GI Mini or even the VLK, just because that'll help you with medium range effectiveness. But if you really want to get the full capability of this class setup, you'll want to use it like this, with these 5 attachments. So after looking at the classic Kilo and the best Kilo setup, we can also look at the fast Kilo setup. And this is something that you'll be wanting to pair with a sniper or just using it by itself. You don't really want to use an SMG with it because I feel like the barrel kind of will make the SMG irrelevant. And the barrel in question is a Singard Arms Whisper barrel, which is kind of a barrel meant for close to medium range for the Kilo. And this barrel has an integrated suppressor, so you don't have to use Monolithic Suppressor on this Kilo, giving you an extra attachment slot. The barrel also gives you better bullet velocity, which is of course another really important thing to have in Warzone. We then put on Tac Laser for all the pros I mentioned previously, Commando foregrip, 60-round mags, and the stippled grip tape, just because this gives you better ADS speed and sprint to fire speed, which can be important when using the Kilo at closer ranges, just because you want to kind of bring it out to fire as quickly as possible, especially if someone else is using an SMG. This Kilo is probably best used in solos or, in a sniper loadout, just because it's really meant for closer engagements. You shouldn't be using this thing at longer ranges, and it's kind of meant for you to be able to move around faster and engage in close range fights faster with a kilo. If you really wanted to speed things up, you could put on no stock, but honestly, with the kilo's leftward leaning recoil, I feel as though it would just make the kilo's recoil unbearable, in my opinion. And especially with the recent nerfs that no stock has had on a lot of weapons, I just feel like it isn't worth putting that attachment on, even if you're getting a movement speed bonus. Of course, if you're comfortable with the extra recoil caused by no stock, you can go for it and get rid of either tack laser or stippled grip tape in order to include it in the setup. The next setup would be the sniper kilo, and this is kind of an alternative to the fast kilo, and it's very similar. So we have the Stingard Arms Whisper Barrel, again, Commando foregrip, 60 round mags, tack laser, and the GI Mini Reflex. Now this is the weapon you want to run if you want to run the kilo with a sniper, but you just don't like those iron sights, because the kilo's iron sights are kind of circular, which can be decent at close range, but at the medium to long ranges where you're going to also be using the kilo, whether it's just to engage enemies or to finish off a sniper kill, you're going to want a more precision and accurate sight. I wouldn't recommend the VLK on this setup because I feel like that would just limit your close range effectiveness. So the GI Mini or even the hollow sight, which I know a lot of people have been enjoying recently, would probably be good alternatives. And this is probably the best kilo that you can have with a sniper, apart from the fast kilo. Now, our final kilo setup is what I like to call the alternative kilo. Because honestly, even though, of course, now this is our 5th class setup for the kilo, you can't really mess up the kilo, and you can mess around with a bunch of attachments for it, and it'll still be very viable and very effective in Warzone. With this kilo, we just have monolithic suppressor, the 19.8 Prowler barrel, the Merc foregrip, 60 round mags, and the GI Mini Reflex. The reason why I changed Commando to Merc was because the Merc foregrip actually gives the kilo the best vertical recoil control, meaning that a lot of that vertical recoil is negated, once again making the kilo a laser beam. Really, the main difference between the Commando and Merc is that the Merc will give you better vertical recoil control. Commando will give you better horizontal recoil control. So whichever one you feel like you have more trouble controlling, you can use either Commando or Merc. The main reason I don't usually use the Merc is because it has detriments to aim down sight speed, and that can often hurt when you're forced to fight in close range with the Kilo, which is already a slow ADSing assault rifle. Of course though, the Merc still lives up to all of its pros, and I would definitely recommend trying it out in Warzone. The foregrip though that I wouldn't recommend trying is Ranger foregrip. The Ranger really has no real benefit which sets it apart from the Merc and Commando, and honestly it's kind of in the in-between range of the Commando and Merc, where it's just not a very good underbarrel for the Kilo. You always want to be using Commando if you want a slightly speedier Kilo setup with good recoil control, and the Merc if you're really concerned about recoil control and don't care too much about the Kilo's up-close capabilities. I also put on a GI Mini Reflex on this class just because it's my favorite close range sight, and maybe if you're going for a more aggressive setup, you'd want to get rid of that VLK and get up close with the Kilo, you can always just put on the GI Mini. And of course the hollow sight, which I've also been hearing is very good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, and hopefully this will help you set up your Kilo and use it effectively in Warzone. If this video was helpful in any way, please consider liking and even subscribing to the channel, and if you didn't enjoy the video or if it wasn't helpful, please consider disliking so that I'll know what to do better next time. Well anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.